Tell us what you make of these numbers. Obviously not quite as bad as expected, but the overall trend line seems to be the same as what we had been expecting.
Good morning, Heidi. So yes, 600 billion won in operating profit. That's better than expected, but it still represents more than 90% fall year on year when Samsung posted more than much better result a year ago. So the result today show probably the worst in the memory chip loss might be behind us. That's what at least analysts at Goldman Sachs said. But it also shows that Samsung but it also shows that Samsung may have been shipping more memory chips than in the last quarter than it was expected. The company didn't say much about its result, as is typical for the preliminary results. It didn't give us breakdown among the result, but what analysts have been saying is that there has been more than 2 trillion won in memory chip and semiconductor division loss in the past quarter.
So is this just a part of the broader cycle in the semiconductor space right now, the reason why they're under so much pressure, and when can we expect them to recover?
That's a million-dollar question, Sherry. Everybody is looking for the answer to that. And because the global demand for the memory chip, smartphones, PC, computer, server have been still muted, we don't know when the recovery will be coming. Also, we are looking at the possible global recession, so it makes it much harder for us to estimate when the recovery would start to kick in. However, that's something that analysts will be asking when Samsung holds its earnings conference call later this July, on July 27. And how do we know that? How do we know Samsung estimate the demand recovery? Is that how much Samsung is going to cut its output of memory chips? The company has already said in the first quarter that it is going to adjust the memory chip output to a meaningful level. And what investor is looking for is that whether Samsung is still committed to cutting its memory chip output, and to what extent the company would do that. And that is going to help the weak demand by adjusting the supply of the memory chip, which is very vulnerable to the supply and demand situations.